Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So, checking out one of the most exciting videos of 2025 so far for you guys this evening because I am done with my holiday break. I'm back to making videos and we're taking a look at Grand Theft Auto 3 running on the Sega Dreamcast. And to say that's an absolutely insane port would be an understatement. This is developed by SKMP, maybe pronounced Skimp, not quite sure, and it brings the entirety of the Grand Theft Auto 3 experience over to the Sega Dreamcast console. It runs very well for what it is right now, which is just a prototype release. Obviously, it is not a finished product, but the entire game is here, and it is the Grand Theft Auto you all know, love, and remember. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But honestly, this is just absolutely an insane thing to see and behold. The entirety of Grand Theft Auto 3 running on the Dreamcast hardware. Obviously, this game had to wait for PlayStation 2 to see a retail release, but now today you can play this, and there's more than one way to do it. You can just pop it onto a GDEMU device on your real Dreamcast, or you can use DevCast to play it as well, which how I'm doing it here, just to explain that this game is playable via emulation. Because it seems like there's a lot of trouble out there with people actually getting this game set up, whether on Dreamcast or via emulation. So what I will do is leave a link to my Discord below and set up a channel just for Grand Theft Auto on Dreamcast, where you guys can kind of find the files and everything else you might need for this, because it is a little bit tricky to set up, but once you get it running, it's absolutely stellar. And talk about an absolutely massive port. Grand Theft Auto 3 obviously is the smallest of the 3D Grand Theft Auto games, but it is still a massively ambitious game with thousands upon thousands, maybe into the hundreds of thousands of lines of code just to make certain things work. And obviously this kind of kicked off the genre of the open world game for Grand Theft Auto and Rockstar Games, and right now we're waiting on more news dumps coming out for Grand Theft Auto 6, because we've been playing Grand Theft Auto 5 forever now. I remember getting that game on PlayStation 3, and obviously now we're on PlayStation 5. It's wild just how many legs that game actually has. But honestly, I love to see projects like this happen. And before you leave the comment down below, there's tons of different ways to play Grand Theft Auto 3. We obviously all know that. There is no quote-unquote technical need to port this over to the Dreamcast, but as far as bringing fun games over and just seeing what the Dreamcast can truly do, there's absolutely 100 different reasons to do something like this. For fun is the #1 reason, and the only reason you really need to port a project like this. And I would say in its current incantation, this release right here is absolutely just nailing it. The game is playable, everything runs well, the frame rate holds up unless you have a lot of chaos going on screen at once, and again, it is still in development. But it seems crazy to think that you can even play Grand Theft Auto 3 on your Dreamcast right now. I did pop this onto my GDEMU device just to make sure it ran on there as well, but I figured again I'd talk about emulation because not every single person out there has an optical disc emulator in your Dreamcast, and because this game's ISO or CDI file is 917 megabytes, it's not something that you can burn to an actual CDR to get to run on your Dreamcast, hence me talking about emulation here as well. But I am just absolutely floored and blown away by how well this game actually runs on Dreamcast hardware. The developer here clearly proved that back in the day, Rockstar could have brought this game over to the Dreamcast and everything would have worked totally fine. And to say that this game was a genre-defining game again would be an understatement. I have played the ever-loving hell out of this game back in the day, and now on Dreamcast I find myself doing the exact same thing, completing a few missions and just absolutely wreaking chaos across the city, trying to have as much fun and destruction as possible. And the best part is all of the physics, all of the graphics, all of the voice lines, and the soundtrack have come over fully from the original PlayStation 2 release of the game onto Dreamcast. And I will give you a sound sample in just a little bit, but obviously because of the licensed soundtrack, you're just going to be getting some voice lines versus the actual music, or else you wouldn't really be watching this video on YouTube. But again, this is just such a quintessentially classic game that really kind of just reinvented video games in its own right. When this thing came out, to say the cultural impact was huge would be an absolute underselling of just how big Grand Theft Auto was. It had a moral panic alongside of it with everything you could do in the game, and while now the media kind of just leaves video games alone, back then this didn't just sell a metric crap ton of copies, it caused a metric crap ton of controversy, which is another reason why it really just captured the public's imagination. And it always should have been on a Sega console back in the day, but unfortunately the Dreamcast didn't live a long enough life to see it happen. But here's your voice sample as far as the music and sound is concerned, and I'll be right back.
Luigi said to give you this, so here, take it.
There's a new high on the street. Goes by the name of Spank. Some wise man's been introducing this trash to my girls down Broadway. I'll go and introduce a bat to his face. Then take his car, respray it. I want compensation for this insult.
Sounds good to me, even if the engine noise did persist in the background, and I want you to be very clear, this is definitely still work in progress. It is not perfection. If you've watched a video saying this is every bit as good as what's on PlayStation 2, that was not exactly true. This is still like a 9.99 out of 10 as far as the effort and performance are concerned, but of course, like anything, there are still bugs to be ironed out, and you're going to encounter a few of them. But I've talked to a few people I know who are massive Dreamcast fans, and they have basically told me they are very deep into the game, and outside of a few visual or audio glitches, they haven't had anything interrupting their overall gameplay, so it seems safe that you can just sit down and play this game from start to finish today. And of course, like Grand Theft Auto always goes, I managed to break that car enough so it exploded on me. But it is just such a fun technical achievement and really goes to show just how powerful the Dreamcast truly was. There are multi-platform games on PlayStation 2 and Dreamcast where the Dreamcast version is the better of the two. It's just sad that the Dreamcast didn't get to live long enough of a life for us to see those true late-stage games that could have been possible on the hardware, say maybe late 2003, because the Dreamcast released in 1999 in North America and was canceled by 2001, so it's not like people wanted to spend a lot of time and effort developing on a console that wasn't really going to be around for much longer, because clearly the developer here has proven that the entirety of Grand Theft Auto 3 could work on the Sega Dreamcast, and that is just a massive thing to prove. And honestly, just think about how many man hours would have gone into a port like this. I'm assuming there's probably thousands of hours getting this entire thing running on the Dreamcast, because of course it uses a completely different processor than the PlayStation 2, so it's not like you're just trying to drag and drop files. Obviously, you are rewriting and porting a lot of this yourself, and that is just so impressive to see. And just playing this again, it's been years since I played Grand Theft Auto 3 from start to finish, but now I want to do it again, and I want to do it on Sega Dreamcast. That's how good the game is, and that's how good the port is. And I would say graphically it looks absolutely outstanding on the Dreamcast. Some of the textures even look a little bit better to my eye than PlayStation 2, but you leave me a comment down below and you tell me what you think. And of course it is still Grand Theft Auto, so you can create whatever chaos you want, and that is a lot of fun in the game. And honestly, just capturing this footage for the video and playing around with it, I found myself doing the exact same thing I would do back in the day, which is ignoring the story and just beating the ever-loving hell out of people and kind of just traversing the city doing whatever it is I wanted. Now this game does have options. You can do keyboard and mouse and other control aspects as well, because of course an original Dreamcast controller is only going to have one analog stick, and that's going to be something that the PlayStation 2 would beat Dreamcast at. But you can play around with the controls, and if you're on a real Sega Dreamcast, definitely recommend you bringing mouse and keyboard if you have one. I just love jumping that berm there, flipping the car, and driving away from it. That's always been the charm of Grand Theft Auto 3 and every single Grand Theft Auto, the ability to do whatever you want. And now you have the ability to do whatever you want on the Sega Dreamcast. But just take a look at the overall loading here, how those textures kind of pop in. It's so smooth. You have the lens flares. There's just something here that makes us feel like maybe one of the most special Dreamcast homebrew releases ever made. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking all of the other efforts out there on the Dreamcast. There's just something about Grand Theft Auto 3 coming over that feels like it is the impossible project that you can now play today. And again, if you need help running this thing, I will leave a link to my Discord below, because it can be a little bit tricky to get set up on an emulator. There's only one that works, and it does take a few moments. So as opposed to turning this into a tutorial, I'll just tell you that I did leave that channel there with the Dreamcast emulation files as well. But this is just so exciting, and I love this game's sense of humor. I have to go pick up Misty here, and you can pick her up in any vehicle you want, so I just steal a box truck, and the game basically treats it like it's a normal occurrence. That's one of the most fun things about Grand Theft Auto 3 in my opinion. You can play the game how the game wants you to play it, but you can also do dumb shit like grab a box truck and just basically run it through town, driving Misty out into the docks, and the game doesn't bat an eyelash at it. I'm sure they intended you to pick a more normal vehicle, but if it has wheels and it drives, you can pick her up and you can go from there. And that's always been the most fun about Grand Theft Auto, is just the sense of freedom to play the game however you want. And all of the cutscenes, all of the voices, all of the incredible soundtrack that I can't let you listen to because it is all licensed, is here, and it runs on Dreamcast. And as a Sega fan, I would have loved to have seen something like this back in the day. It just goes to show that the Sega Dreamcast has so much more potential hardware-wise than any developer actually realized back in the day, because it didn't get to live a long life. And just so you're aware, this will not run on Flycast, it will not run on Redream, and that is because they're using a special cache mode on the Dreamcast that doesn't generally get emulated related because it really isn't used by anything on the retail game front, but does still exist on the Dreamcast hardware. So again, it's been so much fun just kind of demoing this thing, playing around with it in the background. Now that the holiday's over, it was the video I wanted to get to first because I absolutely love Sega. You know that watching the channel, and I absolutely love mod efforts like this. And of course, like anything else Grand Theft Auto 3, you can manage to absolutely just screw yourself over by hitting the wrong thing, blowing yourself up and ending up at the hospital. But we're done, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.